So today on RC Guy Garage, the basics, we're going to be returning back to the Traxxas MAXX. So in a previous video, what we had done is I had shown you the process that it takes to actually get to and or access that center drive and technically the front and rear differentials as well. So in this video, what we're going to do is take that center drive out, disassemble it, show you the different parts that are involved, and then reassemble it and put it back into the vehicle. Maybe we'll do a little bit of cleaning. What we're not going to do is we're actually not going to replace the differential fluid that's inside, because I don't feel, unless I discover some kind of issue, I don't feel it's actually ready to be replaced yet, but that's just going to be upon, I guess, inspection or observation once we bust that thing open. I'll leave a link in the description, and I'll also put a little card up here or wherever it's supposed to be that just gives a link to that video that I'm referencing about when we actually took this thing apart. So if you're ready for this episode of what I call the basics, let's just hop right into it. So as you can see right now, obviously from, if you watch that video, we've gone through the process of exposing this drive shaft, the center differential, the rear differential, which is housed in one, and then the front diff, which is actually right here. So in effect, the front differential and the rear differential are exactly the same thing. They're just, kind of opposed. So they're turned into a different direction. But they are the exact same thing front to back, which is nice. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to pull out the center differential right here. And that's just really easy by grabbing the drive shaft, lift it up, and we're going to show you what is involved or how many pieces are involved with completely disassembling. You can already see things are falling apart. With completely disassembling this center drive. So I'm going to grab a paper towel. We'll put the diff right over here, and we'll get you down low. So as a unit, what you can see right here is we actually have 3 bearings. So we have a small bearing on the front. We have 2 bearings on the back. You got to take off this pinion gear. Pull the pin. You don't have to pull the pin to get the bearings off, but pull the pin. You got to pull off this bearing, and you got to slide off this bearing. Now, these two bearings are the exact same size, so it's not going to make a difference which order you put these back on. But what I would say is do not use any kind of solvents to clean these bearings, because if you do, the solvent will actually get inside, and it will technically remove the oil that's actually keeping these bearings nice and lubricated. So it's a good time right now to kind of give these a little bit of a spin. These bearings actually feel absolutely mint. You'd be able to feel an issue if there was a problem, and I don't feel any issue with these bearings. So I'm going to set those aside. Then on this side, with a 1.5 millimeter, there's actually, it's kind of like a set screw, but it's more like a pinned set screw. We're going to remove that. So see how it's a pinned set screw? What that allows us to do is actually take off little splined gear, and you can see if there's a hole that pin actually goes through on that shaft. Then you can go ahead and take this bearing and remove this bearing. Now, as far as the bearings go, and these parts right here, the bearings are the only thing that I'm not going to clean in a solvent. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to clean this up first before we break it open, but you just want to be careful and not get too much cleaning materials actually inside of here. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use a little container, put a little bit of solvent in it, and use a brush to help or assist cleaning this. I'm actually going to use one of these containers right here and a toothbrush. I'm going to take a little bit of enamel reducer or lacquer thinner. I'm going to pour it into here, into this container right here. I'm going to drop a couple of these pieces in. Put the cover on. Give them a swirl. Grab a pair of needle nose pliers so you can go ahead and grab them out. Have a paper towel all ready, and then just kind of clean them off. Now, just swirling them in there should actually be enough to go ahead and get that stuff off, all those contaminants and whatever is in there. And then obviously you end up with a nice clean piece. So We'll kind of swirl these with the toothbrush a little bit. Go in here, grab the piece. Take a toothbrush, clean it up real quick. The other thing you can do is if you had an air compressor, you can use an air compressor. Make sure you use protection, whether if it's gloves, eye protection, you know, whatever, just to keep yourself safe. I'm going to take a paper towel piece, kind of just put it in there. Clean that piece out right there. Going the other way, same thing. Clean that out, and then you can see it's just shinier now. I'm going to go ahead and grab these pins. One is a set screw, which is this one right here. And the other one's the actual pin. Go ahead and just kind of rub that off. Same thing with this. Clean it up. The little pin. So those pieces are clean. So now what I'm going to do is I'm not going to really dunk this, but what I want to do, I want to be able to clean it without getting, I guess, any of the solvents inside. So I'm just going to clean it just like this. You can see the stuff already coming off. So now we've got this all cleaned off, dried up. We actually used the brush, went through all the gears, just kind of got into as many of these kind of nooks as we could get. Dried it off with the paper towel so that everything was nice. And made sure that there wasn't anything that could kind of get into this once we open this up. So next thing we need to do is take our 2.5 millimeter Allen key, and we're going to actually take these 4 screws out to actually expose the insides of the center diff. And these are a fine thread screw. I'm going to take these out. 3, 4. Set those aside. Those are already clean. We don't have to worry about that. Now we can actually separate the gear from the case. And you can hear it. There's also going to be a seal, but when you look at this stuff, look at how just gnarly this stuff is. And if you give it a twist, you'll be able to pull it out. So here's technically that other side of the gear, which you can actually, you know, just push out from that back side. It does have an O-ring on this back side right here that actually seals it from contaminants getting out or coming in. And they did a real good job filling this differential. So on this little, I guess you want to call pinion gear, there is that O-ring. It's actually right there. Pull that O-ring off. Then you'll be able to actually slide the shaft out of the actual gear. We can set that aside. Here's that pin. Now this stuff is going to kind of feel like glue. So this kind of, I guess you want to say, cup also has a seal that's in here. We can leave that seal in place. We shouldn't have to do anything with that. But if you wanted to see what was actually inside of here, you can kind of take some of this fluid, or almost like glue, out. That's literally what it feels like. It almost feels like it's a type of a silicone or a glue. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ball that up and throw it right on the paper towel right there. I'll take my needle nose pliers. We'll go ahead and grab that pin so we can actually pull this gear out. Okay. So there's one section of gears, looks like almost like a barbell. Here's the other section of gear. Now, when you look at these pins or shafts, not sure if you can see, but maybe if you see the profile, thing would focus. Focus. The gears actually interlock. The shafts interlock into each other, like this, right here. So there's only one way that this can actually go back together. And when you put this back together, you want to make sure that you actually interlock those shafts. And then inside here is where your other gear is. And you can go ahead and push that through. And it's effectively the same thing. It has an O-ring. You pry that O-ring away. The O-ring is the exact same size. And then take that gear, pull that gear out. You put that gear down, and then you could slide that pin out. So these gears right here, these don't have any kind of pin on them. They're floating, and that's the way they're designed to be. But there are 4 gears in total. So I'll do is I'll take the glue off of the gear so you can see it. Same thing on this side. There's that shaft. Here's that gear. So this is what that gear looks like. Technically, just we're using the grease or the silicone. It is like a glue, but we're using it to take off the silicone from the rest of the gears. You see how it just kind of sticks to itself, leaving the gear nice and exposed and clean. So here's your ball of 20 million silicone. What I'm going to do for now, I'm actually just going to clean up these bearings. This is with a paper towel. Just like that. Clean up on the inside. Clean up on the outside. Just run the paper towel through. Just like that. And that's what the bearing should look like, all nice and clean. So there you go. 29 pieces, which you could maybe almost call 30 if you actually wanted to count this as actually a piece. That's actually the 20 million silicone, because you want to call it diff lube, it's actually inside the housing, and that's what lubricates or keeps the gears kind of, I guess, functioning. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put this 29 or 30 piece disaster all back together. It's really not that hard. It's just, it's technically basics. Just take your time, and if you want, one of the best things you could probably do is video yourself taking things apart, and that way there won't be any question when you go ahead and put this differential back together. It's just literally basic. Take your time and just get it done. So now we'll just go through the very easy process of, putting things back together. And as far as everything looks in here, everything actually looks absolutely mint. I mean, I didn't expect it to be any other way. But you never know. You never know. Could you have found, absolute destruction? Yeah, you could have. But yeah, we didn't find any issues concerning this thing here. So just checking stuff. Looked like there was like something in there. Couldn't tell what that was. But so first you want to do is obviously, well, you don't have to first, but put the gasket on there. There's that little shim. Maybe it's like some type of a thrust washer or something. Put that down and inside there. Make sure whatever tool you're using is not dirty. Make sure it's clean. Then obviously you want to assemble your gear. So we're going to grab the shorty pin. We'll grab the shorty with a pin. We'll place the pin inside. Just like that right there. Just like that. We can take our O-ring. We're going to put our O-ring, install that. Now we insert that gear actually inside the housing. Just like that. Push it all the way. Push it all the way down to the bottom. So now we're going to set up our spider gears. Those gears are faced towards the inside. So I'm going to grab one of those shafts, grab 2 gears, place them towards the inside. And we want to make sure is that flat piece right there is actually facing up. Go ahead and stuff that down and in. Make sure the gears are meshed. I'm going to take the other gears and the other pin. Remember, the gears actually, the mesh actually kind of faces towards the inside. Now when we insert this one, we want to make sure that we actually put it flat down. Just like that. And then we can put our finger in there and give it a twist to make sure it actually functions. And it does. So now what we want to do, we want to take our blob of silicone, kind of just stuff that inside. Now I want to reassemble our other gear, which takes this shaft and this pin. We're going to install our pin, install our gear onto the shaft, inset into that pin, put our O-ring on. That will keep that together. Take that, slide this into that gear like that. You want to make sure that that silicone is actually pushed down and inside. You do kind of want to expose some of the gears, or at least flatten it down. See how we kind of flattened it down to like a cup? Because you're pushing that silicone actually into the gears, giving this gear, I guess you want to say, room to go ahead and mesh and not squeeze out. So now we can go ahead and put that gasket back on, just like that. Now this is when you want to take things and line them up. So we want to line up the holes, just like that. Take our 4 screws, drop them into place. Get our 2.5. Now I'm just going to give these a little bit of a torque. It's kind of like a torque sequence just going all the way around. You can feel when it's tight enough. You got to be careful though because it is plastic. So there we go. So now we've got technically the actual center diff portion kind of together, at least the inside. So you don't have to do this part, but this is what I do myself. Like I said, I kind of use this like as an assembly lube. Going to install one of those bearings. Actually, just like that. Now take the other bearing, also place it on. Take our last pin, slide our pin into position. Then put our gear on. Then I'm going to put a little bit more of what I call assembly lube right on there. Then take our bearing, slide our bearing into place. And then hopefully it stays in place. Doesn't really. Put a little bit of assembly lube on there. Go ahead and install our bearing. Install our gear. And then this pin actually does need to be thread locked. So I'm going to take a little bit of blue Loctite, put it right on there, reinstall it. Give it a little tweak. Reinstall our bearings and our pin again because they fell off. Just have patience, take your time, and it'll all happen. So there we go. So you saw how quick and easy it was to go ahead and reinstall or reassemble this center diff. So that's literally all it takes. It just takes a little bit of patience. And like I keep saying, as far as these basics go, it's technically all basic, because if you break it down into each individual component, it's just all just basics. So if you enjoyed episodes like this from RC Guy Garage, this is actually called the Basic Series. You know what to do. Subscribe, give me a thumbs up, give me a thumbs down, whatever you want to do. Share the channel. The channel's actually, like I said, been taking off like a rocket, and I'm just kind of blown away by that. So if you like things like this, you already know what to do. So just get at it. So thanks for watching this episode from RC Guy Garage, and we're out of here. Now we just got to figure out cleaning all that garbage out of there. So the next time on RC Guy Garage, what we'll end up doing is we'll actually rebuild the front and rear differential, and then we'll show you something that's actually interesting about these splined, I guess you want to call them axles, or sometimes people call those drive shafts, but these are technically axles. But there is kind of like a unique little thing about those, and it's not only this vehicle that it happens with, but yeah, we got to clean all that junk out of there. Hey, Vector, say goodbye. Anyways, just get out there and thrash stuff. Just have fun. Thanks for watching this episode from RC Guy Garage. Just get out there.